krople Beskidu?
Kto? Co?
Wiesz, kto produkuje krople Beskidu?
Że jaka korporacja?
No.
No, moim zdaniem Coca-Cola.
No.
Co jest w smysle odkrywczego?
Śmieszne, bo oni tak jakby produkują wszystkie rodzaje napojów.
Co jest śmiesznego?
Może zagarniający.
Czekaj, bo jest chyba start.
I would like to very warmly welcome everyone here to our today's debate. My name is Przemysław Hankus, and on behalf of Freedom and Entrepreneurship Foundation and on behalf of Libertarian Association, European Students for Liberty, and Independent Students Association of the University of Warsaw, we have today a honor. We are very pleased to welcome our honorable guest. On my right-hand side, we have the editor-in-chief of the Liberté magazine, a journalist and political scientist, political developments commentator, Mr. Jażdżewski. And on my far right-hand side, we have Dr. Brook, the executive director of the Ayn Rand Institute, which is spreading Ayn Rand's word and works and the philosophy of objectivism across the globe. And Dr. Brook is the author of many books, including the likes of his newest book entitled Free Market Revolution. He is also a member of Mont Pelerin Society. Please give Dr. Brook very warm welcome. And today's debate will have two parts. The first part will be the questions I will ask to our honorable guests, which will take about an hour. Every of our guests will have about 5 minutes to answer each of the questions. And then after about an hour, we will move on to the second part of our debate, which will be the questions from you, the questions from the audience. So if you would like to ask some questions to one of our guests, please raise your hand, introduce yourself, and try to make your question as short as possible, so that the others will have some time for their question as well. I know that it sounds a bit altruistic, but sorry for that. And of course, to point out directly who are you asking about. Okay? So our today's topic is, to say, a bit controversial. Dr. Brook said that as at the first time he saw the topic, he told me that it shouldn't be put this way. But before we go to the whole topic, I would like to start our debate with defining the terms. I would like to ask you, what is capitalism? How do you define capitalism? How do you understand this term? And first, I would like to hear the answer from Mr. Jażdżewski.
Well, we really start with very simple questions, and well, sorry in the afternoon, but well, I'm just Dr. Brooks is very well known. Perhaps not all of you know what I am doing here. I'm very pleased, by the way, and honored. Thank you for the chance. I wouldn't go into giving you the big definitions, but what I think is important about capitalism is that, and especially if you bring the European and American perspectives, is that capitalism is a dynamic system, and it functions in the social context, which is constantly changing. And when you see the capitalism of the, let's say, early 19th or even the late 19th century and compare it to the FDR's, Franklin Delano Roosevelt's capitalism, and then the Reagan's, and then the, well, who hell knows whose capitalism is today, in the world or in the United States or in any particular country in Europe, you see that the basic, well, let's say the basic grounds, the well, respect for, or even the almost even more than a respect, is like the very basic principle of capitalism, which was the driving force of its success, the private property, and is a fundament of existence of capitalism as such, as in opposition to the system that, from what I see, most of you fortunately didn't experience yourself, being the socialism which you had here. So, with despite the respect for private property, the tax system, the scale of the state intervention was very different and depended on many factors. So, and still, what I think is our topic is here to debate capitalism and inequality. And well, I think that it's very fair that libertarians or liberals as myself debate such things, because I very strongly believe that leaving some issues to the, well, left or to conservative, is such as topic of inequality or the red color, which I personally quite like, is a mistake. So that's why we, for example, in Liberté, we did the issue on the liberal social policy, which seems like a contradiction in itself, but the reality where capitalism exists, starting from the autocratic or, well, basically autocratic states of, well, monarchies and the states where very few people had the right to vote, to the present-day democracies where the capitalism functions in the context of global system, but still the national states are the political entities which define our behavior as citizens, means that there are certain challenges to the very idea that to the very basic principles of capitalism, and ignoring things like Piketty book from or all the stuff that perhaps most of you, I suppose there are not that many people from critical politician here, or I won't be surprised, but which is like the left, you know, like a dissent magazine here, and so so perhaps most of you rather go for reading like the Fountainhead or you know than reading the Piketty, which is fair enough, but they are on the winning side, both here in Poland and Europe, and to understand why people are after the Reagan and Thatcher revolution, which were the defining moments for us here in this country in the 1990s, where our economic and political thinking was being defined. Well, that's a good thing to debate. So perhaps I kind of avoided your question, but I think we have more capable people here to speak on the, well, it's not the classroom anyway, and so I will stop here and wait for my another 5 minutes.
Next question. Thank you. Thanks. Did this go off? This went off. Which button? There we go. Okay.
That works? Whoa. First, let me thank my opponent here, my debating partner, I guess, for agreeing to debate, particularly in English. I know it's difficult to debate in one's second language, so I appreciate your willingness to do this. Capitalism is the system of private property. It's a system in which, ideally, all property is privately owned. It really is a system in which there is a separation between the government and the economy, which the government has no role in the economy. So that is what that is what capitalism is. And this was my kind of objection to the title, because the title had something about European capitalism, and there's very little capitalism in the world today. We live, all of us lived in mixed economies with elements of capitalism. This just goes off by itself.
We hear you well. Maybe the battery is.
Yeah, I don't know that we need this, maybe for the recording, but you guys can hear me?
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. Yeah, the sound is echoey anyway. We live in mixed economies. We live in economies that have elements of capitalism. They have elements of private property. There's no pure private property. In the United States, I like to tell people that we're all renting our homes from the government. And as an example of that, just try not paying your property taxes. And what happens is the real owner of the property comes and takes it back from you. That's fine. We don't need it. So we live in a situation where there's some protection of property rights. It's very limited, and where the government is involved in many of our decisions, in many of our economic decisions. So we live in this complex world in which the state, I think, dominates, and that is true in the U.S. as it is true in Europe. It's more true in Europe than in the United States. The state here is bigger and more engaged in the economic affairs of individuals in Europe than it is in America. But even in America, we see this, and we see it's growing. And this is the thing about the Reagan and Thatcher revolutions, and particularly the Reagan one, is that it wasn't a revolution. There was nothing revolutionary about what Reagan did. I mean, he spoke, he talked the talk, but he never walked the walk, to use an American expression. He never executed on what he said. So under Reagan, government spending doubled in the United States. Under Reagan, regulations increased. Under Reagan, every aspect of government grew, except one, which is taxes. He lowered the taxation rates. That's good. I'm all for lowering taxes. But that's not a substantial movement towards capitalism. Thatcher had a deeper impact on Europe and on the UK in particular than Reagan did. In that sense, she was much more of a revolutionary than Reagan was. But neither one of them changed the dynamics of the direction of the world in a fundamental sense. And that's why I think ultimately, long-term, they failed. That's why I think the left is winning, because the debate has never really shifted. The debate about why capitalism is moral or not moral, what are the ethical arguments for or against capitalism, I think is the fundamental debate. And most defenders of capitalism won't talk about it. This is why I think Piketty is winning, because Piketty holds the moral high ground, or at least presents himself as holding the moral high ground, and almost nobody will challenge him. Yeah, I'm gonna switch it off. Unless you can't hear. You guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
I mean, the only challenges Piketty gets, even from the right, are challenges about his data and his theory, but nobody challenges what I think is much more fundamental to Piketty, which are his moral philosophical assumptions. And as long as that is not challenged, the left, the statist element, is going to win and continue to dominate.
So I don't know if I can hear as loud as Dr. Brook, but I hope that everyone can hear me as well.
Yes.
The real question is, can the video camera hear you?
Yeah, that's the question. But anyhow, Mr. Jażdżewski, you have pointed out this parallel to Roosevelt's administration and to the 20s and to the 30s. And I would like, in this context, ask you gentlemen, what do you think about so-called economic crisis which started in 2007? Do you think that this is another time when the capitalism is to blame? Is it once again the fault of capitalism, that capitalism failed once again? Or maybe the situation is different? Maybe once again the government interfered too much, the government regulated the economy too much, and what we are seeing today and what we've seen during the Great Depression is not the fault of the capitalism itself, but maybe once again this is the fault of politicians. So what is your view on the subject of those economic crises?
Who do you want us to go first?
Once again, let's pass the voice to Mr. Jażdżewski.
Okay, there's a good thing about having a microphone, you know, who is actually about to speak or whose time is to speak. But well, we'll do that. So
It works if you want.
no, I know. I just say that then we know who's pointed to be a speaker at the moment. But I'm good. So yeah, that's a question that well the good answer will take perhaps about. It could take either 12 seconds or perhaps 2 hours. So I'll try to stick to the 5 minutes. Honestly, I don't really believe in this kind of like moral talk that we have like a white and black and this is like speaking about when you speak about social issues. When you speak about social world full of our individual choices, it's usually the gray area, and only when you go to the kind of religious terms, you have 100% evil and 100% good. And that's why I'm not comfortable into telling, okay, this is to blame. For the record, that capitalism never fails. Capitalism cannot fail. It's like it cannot fail, and where it functions, it's not failing like gravity. It's not failing. Rain is falling, but it doesn't mean when it doesn't rain. Does rain really fails? Capitalism is very closely connected to our individual choices, our very basic need of gathering things, of feeling, improving our well-being, and this is very natural. This is a very natural need. However, we had this need even before. It's called greed, right? It's called greed by those who like it and also by those who don't like it. And capitalism is a system that uses this very very basic human need and turn this this need, which was a sin for a very long time, used it for the better good. So that we have a system where we don't say that we are not altruistic. Yes, we are when you are buying meat, right? As Adam Smith wrote, you don't really